Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining my course on how to 3D model a light box in Shapr3D. A little bit about myself. My name is Jordan Points. I run On Points Designs at night, and during the day, I'm an applications engineer for a 3D printing company. I have 5 years of professional 3D printing experience and a total of 9 years of 3D printing on the hobby side, where I taught myself how to 3D model. So for the last 9 years, I've been growing my 3D printing and my 3D modeling skills, and now I want to share them with you. In this course, there's going to be 4 modules with 3 lessons each. Your first module is going to be how to create a vector file to import into Shapr3D. Module number 2 will teach you how to turn that vector file into a 3D lightbox in Shapr3D. In module number 3, we'll take that lightbox we just designed and import it into Bambu Studio and get it prepped for printing. Module number 4 will take place after printing, and we will be installing the LEDs in the lightboxes that we just printed. All right, let's jump into it. I'll meet you in module 1. In module 1, we'll be going over selecting the lightbox you want to create. Lesson 2, turning that selected lightbox into a DXF file. And lesson 3, importing that DXF file into Shapr3D and finishing it. All right, in lesson 1, module 1, we're going to be going over how to select a lightbox. So if you're looking for ideas or inspiration, you can always Google images on what you're going to do or about what you want. If you're looking on Google for images, try to get a contrasting image that's black and white. It's much easier to use. You can always type in SVG and it's usually black and white pictures that pop up. But for this course, I'm going to be using my On Points Designs logo. So if you're following along at home, please pick any design you want. It doesn't have to be my logo at all. Just pick anything from Google and search around, and I'll see you in lesson 2. All right, here's lesson 2. We're going to take the image you want to turn into a lightbox and start turning it into the vector file. For this course, I'm going to be going through how to create a lightbox on my On Points Designs logo, but this will apply to any lightbox you want to make. All right, let's jump into it. First, we need to open Shapr3D. All right, so this is the layout. Up in the right-hand corner, you'll see a plus sign. This is how we'll create a new project. While this loads, like I said, I'm going to be doing a lightbox on my On Points Designs logo. So I can pull it up. This is what it's going to look like. So I have a black and white image of it, and now we need to create the vector file. So we can go to Google and type in PNG to DXF and just click the top one. That's a free converter. I'm going to import my black and white image into Convert.to and then convert it to a DXF. All right, now that's finished. Let's download it. All right, so we have the DXF, and you can see the DXF in my downloads folder. Now that we turn the image into a vector file, let's move on to lesson 3. In lesson 3, we will be importing the DXF file into Shapr3D and finishing the file so it has the form of a lightbox. Okay, here's X, Y, and Z in Shapr3D. I'm going to snap it to the top with the little square on the top right. And we're going to go to File and Import into Current Project. Then we're going to select that DXF file you just saved. And I always use millimeter. All right, so now my DXF file is imported, but it's not the right size and it's not in the right location. So first you can click on Sketch. I'm going to start by creating a rectangle the size of my build plate. So my build plate is roughly 250 by 250 on a Bambu A1. There might be a little bit more, but I give it a little bit of extra wiggle room just in case. Now you can double click on one of the edges and it will highlight just anything that's touching it, so the rest of the box. And then you can click Move with the tag on the left, or just hit M and then move it to the center origin. Now we're going to select everything else but the square and move it close to the middle. Now you can tap S for scale. Then you can grab that top little box and pull it down until you think it roughly fits. So that looks pretty good. And then we're going to hit M again to move it. All right, so it's still a little big. Now we're going to go back to S, hit S to scale it a little bit more. All right, and we still need to make a border around this, so give it a little extra room too. Perfect. You can get rid of the box. We don't need that anymore. All right, now we need a border for our lightbox. So I'm going to click the rectangle and just eyeball it. This is going to be the start of the perimeter of the lightbox. All right, moving that a little closer. And if it's not perfect, you can click on each side and drag it in exactly where you need it to be. So I'll get a little closer. All right. That looks pretty good. Now we want to turn these corners into rounded pieces just for an aesthetic purpose. So what I do, I grab the arc and I go 2 boxes down and 2 boxes over, and then it should snap to 90 degrees. Now this one's 95. It's not gonna be perfect. I will go back and fix this, but to show you the rest of them. So 2 boxes left, 2 boxes down, drag up, 90 degrees, perfect. 2 big boxes. If you zoom in, you get smaller boxes. Okay, so now I moved that side in. Now 2 boxes and 2 boxes, snap up to 90, perfect. 2 boxes, snap to 90. Now we're gonna delete the rest of those sharp points. So you can hit the trim button or T on your keypad. And we're just gonna click the parts we don't want. This will trim everything. Now we're gonna make an outline. So double tap the outline and then click the outline button and drag it up 5 millimeters. And this is how thick I make all of my light boxes. You can drag around the views on the top right where the square is, and this is the vector file. This completes module 1, where we created a vector file and imported and finished it in Shapr3D. I'll see you in module 2, where we turn this into a light box. Welcome to module 2, where we will be creating your light box in 3D. There are 3 lessons in this module. Lesson 1 will be creating the lit portion of the light box. Lesson 2 will go over the outer shell and the back plate of the light box. And lesson 3 will be how to export your files from Shapr3D. Okay, I'll see you in lesson 1. Welcome to lesson 1, where we will be creating the lit portion of the light box. Let's jump into it. Here's the sketch that we imported earlier. And now we need to make sure it's all filled. See how each individual piece is coming up colored when you drag over it? That means each piece is closed. So I just make sure to double check them all before you start extruding anything. So these are the little points. You see this little circle with the dot in the middle. That means the point is closed and connected. So I'm going to show you an example of one that's not. So I just deleted a point. I'm going to drag the other one down. And if you were looking at this and it had a broken piece, they would be so close that it looks like they're touching, but they just aren't connected yet. So I just want to show you. So from afar, you'll see just a circle, and then if you highlight it, how it's highlighting the D and the outline. All right, so let's go in here. You'll see a circle that's just white with no dot on a line. And you're just gonna take one, and you're gonna drag it off to the side and drag it right back, and it should snap together and have a little circle in the middle of it. Now these two are connected, and you won't have to worry about it anymore. Moving on, we have to hit E to extrude, or select extrude on the left-hand side on the toolbar. And we're gonna select everything we want to extrude first. I usually do this by colors. So I'm gonna select the O and all the letters in designs because they're gonna be black. And now you have to rotate it just a little bit to get the actual amount or the arrows to extrude. So you touch the square in the top right and you drag it around a little bit. And then we're gonna extrude this -1. So we're essentially pushing the model down into itself for 1 millimeter. You can see this when I turn to the side, it's below the sketch and not above the sketch. All right, so now we have all these bodies, and I'm gonna name them all right now so we don't lose them. So the first color I chose to do was black, and I'm gonna rename them all black. Okay, next, my P is actually in 2 colors. I have a purple to blue gradient, so I'm gonna click on the sketch again. You can also double click on the sketch on the left, and then I'm gonna add a line in here. So it's roughly somewhere in the middle of the P. I'm gonna drag from top to bottom and make sure once you see that purple line come down the center, you know it's perpendicular. So there it is, perfect. All right, now I can hit escape and get rid of that. And I'm gonna go to the trim and trim the middle portion. Okay, so now I have 3 pieces of the P. All right, so let's do the purple side first. So hit E, select the 2, and then you have to rotate it a little bit again, and then hit -1. And once again, I'm gonna name them right away. All right, let's do the last blue section. Also, extrude it -1, and then rename it blue. So the last portion is white, and this is the rest that's gonna be lit. So now we're gonna hit E again and select all the little pieces and the large pieces that are gonna be white. We're gonna extrude that -1 as well. Don't forget to zoom in a little bit and get the spaces in between the letters. Now we're gonna name all of these white. All right, and that's everything. This is all of the lit portion of your light box. All right, so that's lesson 1 in module 2. Let's move on to lesson 2 in module 2, where we will create the outer shell and the back plate for it. All right, here's lesson 2. We will be creating the outer shell and the back plate for the light box. So now you can see all that's left in the sketch is that outer rim. We're gonna click on that, make sure we're off to the side a little bit, and we're gonna go down -40. This is the depth I normally use with all my light boxes. It gets the LEDs far enough away from the actual front of the box that they glow really well. All right, so now we can rotate it all around and you can see it's a hollow box. All right, so now we're gonna snap to the back and we're gonna click on that top back plane and then we can create a sketch off of just that piece. So anything we sketch now will be on that actual bottom of the light box instead of the top where the letters were. Now we're gonna create another offset. So hit O or the offset tool and we're gonna offset the inner edge by 2 millimeters. Now we can move it to the side and hit E. We're gonna extrude that middle portion down -4. And it automatically turns off the sketch. We're gonna turn that back on so we can extrude the missing piece up. See how you cannot select it unless the sketch is on. Okay, so now we're gonna hit E again and select all 3 this time and we're gonna go up 4, so just a +4. And it immediately is gonna wanna union everything together and just make it all one piece. So we have to click this little square at the top and hit new body. So now it's gonna keep that separate from everything else. And now we have the top body and the one we just created. And we're gonna select both of those, the top and the middle piece, and hit union or Control U. And then hit done. So now that back plate is all right there. So that back plate is 1 now. I usually name this back plate and the color as well. All right, so now we can hide the outer rim and we're gonna work on the tabs to help snap this light box together. So you can snap it to the front. You can snap to the front, back, left, or right. I just chose front here. Then we're gonna click on that front inner face and then select sketch. So now we're gonna make a sketch off of this to create a tab. We're gonna click the rectangle tool, or R, and then I'm gonna guesstimate how far this needs to be. I usually do my tabs between 13 and 14 millimeters wide, and I go down 0.8 from the top. So never go to 4 because it will go into the bottom layer. So just go up 0.2 millimeters, go to 3.8. I used to extrude this out 5 and then just repeat the process, but now we're gonna push it all the way through. So we're gonna drag that arrow all the way back through the body of it. Then we're gonna click that little button and turn it into a new body. And then when you deselect everything, you just click off from the white and then select the front face again and pull it out 5 millimeters, and then it will automatically union to the back. And then we're just gonna tweak, and then we're just gonna make the other side 5 millimeters from the edge too. So we'll make sure, so 111, so we're gonna drag it out 5 to 116. Perfect. All right, now we're gonna do that one more time with the other left and right face. Okay, so we're gonna select the face again and hit sketch, and then hit R or the rectangle tool. So that line's only gonna be 12, so then we're gonna move over one more, 14. Let's do right in the middle of the two to try to make it around 13. Perfect, and then we're gonna go down 3.8 and snap that in. And then we rotate it a little bit, hit E to extrude, and I'm gonna go all the way through the body again, change that to a new body, hit done, and then select that front face again, pull it out 5 millimeters, hit done again, rotate it to the other side, select that front face. All right, so even is 226, so we're gonna go to 231. All right, perfect. Next, we're gonna make it a little easier for the tabs to snap into place. We're gonna select the top and bottom, and this is where if you went down 4 millimeters instead of 3.8, you wouldn't be able to grab that bottom one and chamfer it like we're about to. So when you're selecting these, you select each corner while you're holding shift. If you don't hold shift, you're gonna unselect the ones you did, and I chamfer it. So you can drag it towards it to chamfer or pull it away to bevel it, and I always chamfer it to 1.4 millimeters. All right, so now we can check them all real quick. Oh, see, I must have missed the select button. So now I have to go back and just do these So now I have to just go back and hit the top and bottom and chamfer that 1.4. Now we're going to select all the front faces of the little tabs. And once we do that, we're going to just drag them in -0.8. This really helps snap the light box into place. Oh, it renamed it. When we did the union earlier, it renamed it to just a part. So I'm going to rename it real quick, and then now we're going to select the back plate, hold Control and select the outer shell, and then we're going to select the subtract button. You can also do this with Control B on the keyboard. It's going to pop up with two colors like this, and it's going to have a plus and a minus. Think about it, the minus is going to be taken away and the plus is going to stay there. So we're going to click the buttons, and now you can see the holes are going to be put into the outer shell. Now before you select done, we're going to select the little gear and we're going to keep all of the originals, and now we can hit done. So this is going to generate two outer plates, and it names the second one with the holes with a 1 inside of a parentheses. So then from here I just take the other one and delete it, and now we can turn off the back plate with the little eye icon, and now we can check to make sure the outer shell has the holes, and it does. Now we can toggle back on the back plate. This is where we're going to add the holes for the LEDs. So you can select the circle tool. I always go in the center and then just move it up, and then once you click in the middle, you can drag it out as far as you want, and then just click the number and type in 16. I always do 16 millimeters just to make sure any cable can get through. If you have any specialty cables, feel free to design them exactly for your own specific needs, or you can create an adapter for the 16 millimeter hole. Okay, next we're going to create the teeth to hold it on a wall if you want to wall mount it. And I always do these 50 millimeters by 10, so you can just create a 50 millimeter by 10 millimeter box and then hit M or move, and I snap it to the middle center, and I can just drag it down roughly till it looks like it's in a good spot. Okay, to create the teeth, you click L or line and snap it to the middle line of the 50 by 10 millimeter box. The numbers always come out to 5.8 or so. The number usually comes out to 5.813. This one's slightly off a little bit. So if it's around 5.8 something, that's fine. Just click on it. This is where we're gonna make the teeth all the way down. And then you can hit escape and it will stop the end of the line, and you can automatically click a new line to start. 5.8 and the last one. All right, then you can hit escape and get out of that. Now we're gonna extrude, so hit E and click not the teeth, but underneath and the circle. I'm gonna extrude that -8 because that's how thick the backplate is with both pieces. Okay, so now we're gonna hide the outer shell. I'm gonna make sure these teeth don't go all the way in. So we're gonna select the top face of it and then hit sketch. This will snap it to the top. We will rotate it back around, hit the line button or L on your keypad, and then we're gonna connect the two lines above the teeth. This will create a sketch so that we can now grab the teeth and extrude those down. All right, so now let's select them all. All right, now we're gonna go -4. The reason I do this is so the nail doesn't have to be 8 millimeters sticking out of the wall. It only has to be 4, which is very doable. All right, we can turn the outer shell back on, and that is the whole light box. This completes lesson 2. Let's move on to lesson 3, where we will export the files. Welcome to lesson 3, where we will be exporting the files from Shapr3D. So first, we want to rename our project. To do this, you just hit the little arrow next to the untitled project. I'm going to name this OP Designs Lightbox. And then now we can click File, and we're going to select Export. All right, here's a little tip for you guys. If you're using the free version of Shapr3D, you can export this Shapr3D as a project, and then you can import it back into Shapr3D at any time to change the dimensions, to change the model in any way, shape, or form. So if you're using the free version, you only get one workspace. And so you have to always delete everything you want to keep the free subscription going. So if you export the Shapr3D version, you always have a file that you can re-import and change later if needed. All right, but for me, I'm going to be exporting the STL so we can send it to Bambu Studio. Okay, so down here where it says save first level items separately, this is usually off by default. So I always toggle it on, and that's everything we need. We're going to export it now. And we're going to save it. I'm just going to save it to my downloads folder. Now we're going to extract it all. You can open it, and it always names each file this random code, but it adds whatever name you named it at the end of it. So now we'll know what pieces or what colors. All right, this concludes lesson 3, module 2. I'll see you in module 3, where we will be importing and prepping our files in Bambu Studio. Welcome to Module 3, where we will be importing our Lightbox into Bambu Studio and prepping the file for printing. This module will have 3 lessons. Lesson 1 will be importing and painting of the 3D Lightbox. Lesson 2 will be exporting the files as a 3MF, and in Lesson 3 we'll go over some secret settings to improve the quality of your Lightboxes. Alright, let's jump into it. Okay, first we have to open Bambu Studio. Alright, so this is what Bambu Studio looks like. You have the build plate of the printer you use, and then we're going to go select File, Import, and we're going to go find the files you just saved. So now we're going to import all of them except the backplate. So I always hit Control A and then hold Control and select backplate again. It's going to ask if you have really small pieces in there. It's going to ask if you want to scale them to millimeters. I always hit no on this one because everything's scaled correctly. It's going to ask you if you want to load these files as a single object but with multiple parts, and hit yes on this one. So it just defaults to the first color. So now let's go pick our colors. I want blue, white, and then let's pick a purple and a shade of blue. And these are all, you can tweak the colors to your filaments just to have a better idea what it's going to look like. Okay, so now to actually paint them, do you see the numbers that are corresponding with the colors? So when you click on Objects in the Process tab, you see them all as 1. So now you can click on one and actually hit the numbers on your keypad to change the color of them. So black is already 1, blue, we're going to hit 4 on the keypad, and it's going to turn it blue. And purple is 3, so we're going to tap 3 on the keypad, and then 3 again. And white is 2. Oh, that one's black, so we're going to turn it back to black. And there should be one more white. There it is. Hit 2. Perfect. So that's how we color them. It's super simple and super quick. But now you see it's printing straight up, and this is going to create an extremely long waste tower, as well as you'll need a lot of support to support the bottom of it. So first we need to flip it upside down. In order to do that, there's a Lay on Face button on the top toolbar. We're going to click that and then select the top of the Lightbox, and then it snaps the top face down. All right, and this is what it looks like. And we are ready to export as a 3MF right now. And that's it for Lesson 1 in Module 3. Your Lightbox is now imported and painted. Let's move on to Lesson 2, where we will export the 3MF files. Welcome to Lesson 2, where we will be exporting the 3MF files. And we are ready to export as a 3MF right now. So we're going to click File and click Export Generic 3MF. Go back to the file location where you want to save it, and then just rename the file. I just name it opdesignslightbox.3mf, and that is the front section of the Lightbox. Now we need to import that backplate only. So there's the backplate. We don't need to change this in any way, and it automatically defaulted to black because that was our number 1 color. So we can go to File, Export, and we're gonna export it just like the front, but I named this backplate in there. Okay, so now we have them exported. And if we want to import it again, it will keep all the settings the same and even the colors. And that's why we like to save out the 3MF files, so it saves everything for everybody. So if you're looking to sell the files, the 3MF file helps the people get to printing faster. Okay, that's everything for Lesson 2. Let's move on to Lesson 3, which are all the secret settings that I use to improve the quality of my Lightboxes when printing. So when you import items into Bambu, they usually default to a Bambu filament. And if you're using any other filament, they suggest using the generic PLA. So I would get little holes in the Lightbox or little gaps that just didn't make them look good. So we're gonna select this little edit button next to the filament on the generic PLA and see this flow ratio. The generic PLA is always set to 0.98, where I change it to 1.02 and 1.04, depending on if it's a dark color or a light color. So this first one, I'm going to make it a dark color. So I'm going to change it to 1.02, and we're going to click Save and rename it. I always name mine Lightbox Dark Color. Then you can hit OK. I already have this saved, so I don't need to do this. So I'm just going to cancel. And then same for the light colors. Go in here, but change it from 0.98 to 1.04. So then you can hit Save, name it Lightbox Light Color. And then you would save that. And I already have it, so I'm just going to cancel. And then when you tap the drop down button for your filaments, and then you will see your newly saved settings. That's tip number 1 for the settings. Okay, tip number 2, if you're still seeing a little issues with gaps in your first layer, we can move the nozzle down a little bit, and this will help correct that as well. We will click the edit button next to where your printer is located, and then this is what pulls up. It has basic information, machine G code, and that's where we're gonna go, to machine G code. And this all applies to the start G code. So only scroll down in the start G code button. So scroll all the way to the bottom, scroll up a little bit until you see textured PEI plate. The reason it shows the textured PEI plate is because that's the one that is selected underneath the nozzle and the printer settings. Do you see that Z negative 0.04? By default, it is 0.02. So then I go back and change it to 0.02 to 0.04. And if it is already at 0.04 and you're seeing the issue, turn it to 0.06. And this should fix most of those issues. All right, and then you can save those out as different settings as well, so you can later select them. I already named mine Lightbox, so I know which settings I need to use for my lightboxes. And you can see them all here. I even have one for negative 0.06 and negative 0.05, just in case. And that's tip number 2. All right, tip number 3, go down to the wall generator in your quality tab. We're gonna turn on the wall generator on Arachne and not classic. And then make sure the wall transitioning threshold angle is 10 degrees and the wall transitioning filter margin is 25%. This will help with all the little fine details if it needs a really tight tolerance or a turn. All right, so that's tip number 3. Okay, next we can hit slice, and then we're gonna zoom in and make sure it hits all those little pieces. You would see in the G code if it wouldn't, and then you can go back and readjust some settings. But with these settings that we just made adjustments to, you should see them all work out just perfect. And then from there, you can just send it to your printer to print it. When you hit print plate, this is what pops up. It's gonna select the printer that you were most recently on if you have multiple printers. And then you're just gonna select which color is in which spot of your AMS. So my black is currently in port 1, my white is in port 4, my purple is in port 2, and my blue is in port 3. All right, that's everything for lesson 3, module 3. Now go print your light box and come back to module 4, where we install the LEDs. Welcome to module 4, where we will be installing the LEDs on our light box. This module will consist of 3 lessons as well. Lesson number 1 will include the spot for all your shopping needs. Lesson number 2 will be going over how to actually wire the LEDs. And lesson 3 will be how I install all of the LEDs inside of my light boxes. All right, let's get to it. Okay, here's lesson 1. This is the shopping list for all the items needed to build the LEDs. All right, so first we're gonna go to onpointsdesigns.shop. So this is my website, and this is where you can get all the files, you can buy any memberships, you can see all the reviews. All right, then we're gonna click this button where it shows Amazon links, and this is everything I use for the light boxes and all my other projects. So these first 7 are what I suggest buying to create your LEDs. They all have Amazon links to them. So you just click on it and then go add them to your cart. And then you can go through the rest of the shopping list if you want. I typically use Elgu PLA. So these are all the different filaments that I just recommend. All right, and that's it for lesson 1. Let's move on to lesson 2, where we will wire the LEDs together. Welcome to lesson 2, where we will be wiring the LEDs for the light boxes. Okay, so your LEDs are gonna come in strips like this. They will already have 3M tape on the back of them. So for your light boxes, typically you'll need 4 or 5 of these, sometimes even 3. So I usually keep just a razor blade, and we're gonna count how many we need. 1, 2, 3, 4. This box will only need 4. And we're gonna cut those, and then you can cut the rest of them as well, just to separate them from the 3M tape. And we're gonna cut off the excess. Then we'll save these for later for your other light boxes. So now we have a strip, an end connector piece, and then you will have little soldering heat shrink tubes that once you cut the ends of these, you can just put on and use a heat gun and they will solder themselves. But for this tutorial, I'm going to be soldering my own, just because it's what I have on hand. First, we're gonna rip these 2 pieces apart. And then we're gonna cut one side back. It doesn't really matter which side, just so it's not right level with each other. Then we're gonna take your wire cutters and strip off a little bit, and just make sure it doesn't go below and touch the other wire. This will just help prevent any shorting inside the light box if anything were to happen. So now you can see the wires will never touch each other. So now on the DC connector piece, we will do the same thing, just the opposite way. And mine come pre-tinned, and since I'm gonna cut them anyway, I just cut those off. So rip them apart a little bit. So we're gonna since I cut the red one the first time, we're gonna put the red one up against it. So we'll see how far we have to cut the black. So roughly right there. I'm gonna cut that. All right, Next, we're going to strip these wires. And before I move on, I'm going to put this on. This is where you would make sure you have your heat shrink tubes with the solder in them that you could just put on and then twist them together and then move the heat tube back and use a heat gun and solder them together. So I'm going to solder these red and red. First I'm going to twist these together and then twist the negatives together. Grab my soldering iron. All right. And since I don't have those heat shrink tubes, I'm going to use some Kapton tape. This is in the list to buy as well. It's a high temperature electrical tape, which I use on the inside of the box as well. So it's not only for this application. Okay, now I'm going to slide my heat shrink tube over this just to make it look nice and protect it. And then I'm going to use a heat gun and just shrink it together. So when you guys use a heat gun, you will see the solder start to loosen and then just start to squeeze out through the tube. And that is perfect. That means the two wires will be soldered together and you will end up with a finished product that looks something like this. And on this other side, instead of just having it out, I just terminate it, just cut it off. So now that we have our LEDs, that is lesson 2, and then we will move on to lesson 3, where we will be installing them into the light box. All right, here's lesson 3, where we will be installing the LEDs to the light box. All right, so we will have the back plate of our light box and the string of LEDs we just made. I usually put the power cable through the hole first, and then we can use the Kapton tape to tape that to the edge so the LEDs don't get pulled out. Now you can start ripping the red tape off the back of the adhesive. And you can start laying the LEDs where you need them. I just fold the wires together, and then this is where I will tape the wires down with the Kapton tape as well. It holds really well, and like I said, they're a high temperature electrical tape, so no risk of starting on fire. And we'll keep moving down the line, pulling it out of the way. I also tape them down just so you don't get shadows inside the light box. All right, moving on to the last one and taping it down. All right, and that looks good. So this is what your back plate's gonna look like when it's all finished. And this is upside down, so this is what it will look like to you. Now we can grab the front of the light box and snap it together. All right, and there's our finished light box. Now let's turn it on. All right, that completes lesson 3, module 3. You have a finished light box. I'll see you in the last video for my closing thoughts. I want to thank you again for coming to the course, and I hope you learned something today. Even if you're a seasoned 3D modeler, hopefully I gave you a little tip that you can use to apply and make your modeling time that much quicker. Or if you're a beginner, I hope I help you create your first light box. No matter which one you are, I hope you keep in touch and join the On Points Designs Facebook group. This is where we talk about all things 3D printing, laser engraving, and even business-wise when it comes to nostalgic and nerdy things. Thank you all again, and I would love to see the light boxes you made in the Facebook group. Until next time, happy printing.